Hello everybody, welcome back to KWT's Microsoft Outlook Basics course. Today we're going to take a look at tasks within Outlook. So new tasks can be generated from various sources. You can create one directly from the Home ribbon when you're working with tasks. You could accept an assignment of a task from someone else via email. You can flag an email for action, or you can create a task from an email. So there's two slightly different methods there in terms of creating a task from an email. Or you can create a task directly from the to-do bar if you have tasks displayed on the main Outlook screen. The basics of a task are pretty straightforward. There's a subject line, you have a start date and a due date, status, and percent completed are tied together. So as soon as you put a percent completed in, the status will automatically change to in progress. As soon as your completion gets to 100%, it will mark the task as complete. You can also include reminders, and you can adjust the priority to be high, low, or normal. Within tasks, there is a to-do list along with the basic task list. These are often the same, but the to-do list is a special case of viewing your tasks, and it does include flagged emails. Emails that are actually turned into tasks will show on both lists, but those that are simply flagged for action will only show in the to-do list. All sorting and filtering options, the use of views, are all available over both your task list and your to-do list. So let's take a look at some of this in terms of creating a task. So on your main screen, if you have tasks showing on your to-do bar, then you can create a new task right from here. And that will immediately add it to your list. I can take an email that I have and right-click and move it to tasks, and that will create a task for me, and I can then adjust the start date and the due date, as well as any other information I want, and it contains the email information so that I have that for reference when I get to actually performing the task. Then I can, if I want, go to work with tasks, and that's from your navigation bar to go to tasks. And from here, I can create a new task. Again, all the same information that we've seen before to create a new task from scratch. My start date, my due date, and perhaps high priority. So this is my to-do list, and it will show you what needs to be done when, and it will start with those that have no date, so you can make sure you deal with those. Anything without a date, it's important that you assign a date to it. Then you have today's tasks, things that are due today and then due next week. And you can also see that more higher priority items will be highlighted and will come before lower and regular priority items. So your to-do list is a way to see what you should be working on next. Or you can just look at tasks in general, and you will notice down the bottom left that a filter has been applied here. And that's because of the view we're using. So if we go to view settings, we can look at the task filter, and we can see it's tasks due in the next 7 days. So all we're seeing here is tasks that are due in the next 7 days. I can change my view to be everything that's prioritized. So these are high priority items only. I can look at, these are high priority without, if we look at the settings for the filter, these are high priority items. Their importance is high, and the due date does not exist. So these are the ones I want to make sure I get a date into. They have been created without a date for some reason, that's fine, but this is a view that would help you identify which ones you need to address by putting a date on them. We could look just at active tasks. So these are all the active tasks regardless of when they are due and the percent completed and so on. So You can use your views, you can search for tasks within whichever view you're looking at, but keep an eye on that bottom left corner so that you are aware that there are filters applied, and that you go to the view settings filter to find out what type of filter is being applied. And in this case, there's where status is not started, in progress, or waiting on someone else. So those are your active tasks. So you can build views that make sense for you in working with your tasks, but you'll always have your to-do list to help you decide what it is you should be working on next. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the other elements of task. We've mentioned a few of them. So other than the basic information, we talked about status and percent complete, priority, but you can also add categories, and these are the same categories we've talked about in previous modules that apply to emails and calendars. You can also apply them to tasks. So again, you have that task that you must do for your boss, you can categorize it in orange. You have an urgent task, you can categorize it in yellow. So it shows up a little clearer when you're looking at your lists. Under the options, under File, Options, and Tasks, there are a number of elements that you may choose to adjust. Things like default reminder time. So for tasks, the default time for the reminder would be 8 o'clock. Maybe you prefer 9 o'clock if you work a later shift. Certainly you can override these values on each specific task, but it does give you an idea of what you can control. If you prefer your overdue tasks to be in purple instead of red, you can adjust that here. Also keep in mind that tasks can be assigned between people. So not only might you accept a task that somebody else sent to you, but you might assign a task to somebody else. So you can choose to keep that task in your list while it's with the other person, because perhaps responsibility of it lies with you. So you want to make sure it gets completed. And then the sending of a status report when you complete an assigned task, so that the person who assigned the task knows when you have completed it. So again, that automates that communication, so you don't have to separately communicate back to the person and say, yes, I finished this task now. If this is checked off, they'll automatically get that email. Now, keep in mind that if you're going to use tasks, you have to keep them managed. So you have to, similar to the folder structure that we talked about for using email management for deferring emails, if you use tasks to defer emails, that's fine. Make sure you monitor them regularly. So again, you should be in there at least once a day to look for your current tasks that are due today or tomorrow. And you need to manage them to make sure they get due dates, to make sure they get the correct categorization, that you update the percent complete and the status along with that. So tasks are great. If you choose to use them, you have to keep them up to date. It may be worth having a project manager or somebody to take on the project management role to keep tasks on track and to make sure people are completing their tasks on time, or at least contributing to the tasks over time as you are approaching due dates. So that's all of good project management. So let's take a look at some of these features. So if I go to a task that has no date from my to-do list, I can double click on it. And because this is an email that's been flagged, it is not a task. So this is what I'm talking about. When you flag an email, it is not actually a task. It does not have that other information, but it does allow you to see the email and to still act on it. And when you have completed it, you can right click and mark it as complete. So now there's a real task that we've double clicked on, does not have a date. So this one I may choose to start adding some dates in, and then I'll complete that by the 3rd. This was one that was created by copying an email into the task. So it is a different story than simply flagging an email for action. Now you'll notice if I mark some of this as complete, 10% complete, it will automatically adjust the status to in progress. And if I mark that as 100%, it will change the status to complete. So all you have to do is deal with the percent completed. Unless, of course, you get to a point, you get halfway through this task and now you're waiting on someone else, you can manually override the status to be that. And then you may have a view within your views of tasks that show you just tasks that are waiting on someone else. So again, these would be ones you want to monitor maybe weekly to check in with these people and see if they are finished whatever it is you are waiting on so that you can continue on with your task. You also want to keep an eye on overdue tasks, if any show up. So there's an overdue email and they'll be highlighted in red. And when you click on that, you either want to change the due date because you didn't get it done in time, so push it out to a more realistic due date. Or you may want to say it's been deferred until some future date and you don't know what that might be. You may even change the start date. If it's something you can't get started till next week, then you may want to push it out. And you'll notice what happened there is I changed the start date to the 3rd and it pushed the due date to the 10th. Because at this point I'm saying it will take a week to do it. So if I move that start date again, it will push the due date out. So that's how the system knows what kind of effort is required on this task. It's based on the difference between the start and the due date, and it will hold that time frame when you change the start date. Now, certainly I can say, no, this is going to take longer than a week, and I could push the end date, the due date out to the 24th, and now it is a 2-week task. And if I change the start date, it will hold that 2-week period. And of course, we want to make sure that we not only keep our status updated, but check our priorities as well. So we want to make sure that if we have a task that is high priority, that we mark it as such so that we see that exclamation point and know that that's an important one. That's one we need to do sooner rather than later. And some of them may become low priority. So I can actually set them to low and they get a little down arrow. So that's the one I'm going to work on last. I'm going to work on the high priority ones first, and then the normals, and then the low. Now, for those of you that use Microsoft Project Server in your corporate environment, there is an add-in you can get for Outlook that will tie in tasks from Microsoft Project into Outlook. So as tasks are assigned to you within Microsoft Project, it will automatically appear in your Outlook as a task. So if you are a project manager or work with a project manager and have Project Server within your environment, you may want to look into that add-in for people who choose to use tasks within Outlook to manage their workload. Well, there we go. That is Outlook tasks. Hopefully that was some useful information for you, and we will see you in the next module. That concludes this module.